Hello and welcome back to a special episode of Bioshock. I am actually recording this voiceover in post. I was trying to practice a little bit on, having a conversation that went over top of the gameplay, and it didn't go so well. I really stuck with it the whole episode, but it was very disjointed and rambly, and I sort of repeated myself a lot and didn't really convey what I was going for. So I think I'm just going to try and do like a little bit of a director's commentary here as I just turbo smurf on this Big Daddy. Poor guy. He is extremely dead. And it started off with just talking about how I've been recently with regards to content creation. There's been I've been struggling a fair bit with a lot of like mental stuff related to it. I'm not going to say mental health stuff because I've never been diagnosed and I don't want to, claim something I don't have. But it's definitely been, I've been struggling with the mental aspect of streaming and trying to make sure that, I'm happy with what I'm doing and putting out content that I like and trying to understand why I'm not at the moment. And that was, that's been a big, it's been a big issue for me for the last, probably since about November when I stopped playing Fall Guys. So basically what it boils down to, and I've done a lot of soul searching about this in the last month and a half, 2 months. And what it boils down to is I don't feel like for a new viewer, like for somebody coming into my stream for the first time, I don't feel like I have like an X factor. I don't have the same thing I had with Fall Guys. And I know that a lot of people, this is absolutely, I want to preface this by saying, mid spiel preface this by saying, this is not aimed at anybody in my chat. This is not aimed at anybody in the community. This is completely an internal discussion that I've been having with myself. And I know that the people who are sticking around are doing this because they would like to support me, and I appreciate nothing more than that. So thank you to those folks. To all you lovely folks in the city. But as far as a new viewer goes, I sort of look at what I'm doing on stream, trophy hunting and stuff like that, playing through games, and I'm sitting there, and other than my own sparkling personality, what am I really bringing to the table? And when I'm being honest with myself, I can't really find something that I'm bringing to the table that's unique. And with Fall Guys, it was, my skill with the game and my interactivity with chat and my willingness to, teach and educate people on and show people strategies and demonstrate and stuff like that. So I was, I would say I was a good resource for that when I was playing Fall Guys. But now with, just playthroughs, I lose basically all those things. Like, I'm just doing a casual playthrough of Sekiro or Cuphead. And yes, I'm going for the platinum, and that's great. But for something like Cuphead, especially, like, there's no strategy involved in, it's just beat the levels, It's not like, you can do this really cool trick to get this trophy. Like at the end of Sekiro when, you dupe your save file or back up your save file so that you can get all 3 good endings without having to play the game 3 times. That's something nice, but you can find that anywhere, Cuphead, it's like beat the bosses. You can find that anywhere. So I want to be doing something that gives me an X factor. And whether that's, developing a skill set at a game or cranking out a bunch of trophies or whatever, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And so this is not a solved issue. This is not a GG solved issue. This is, me. It's a struggle that I'm going to go through for the next little while. But at least now, I at least have some theories, and things to put to paper, or at least a direction to go in, I should say. Not things to put to paper per se yet, but I at least sort of have an inkling, or maybe I have an idea, or I'm trying something new and I'm figuring out that, like, hey, this is good for me, this is bad for me, this is what I have been doing right, this is what I haven't been doing right, and that's great. That definitely helps things along a lot. The X Factor thing is something that I've been thinking about a lot because I look around and I see people succeeding. And I wonder, what makes them different from me? I wonder what that is. And I think a lot of it is, their own sparkling personality, like no shame there. But I think one of the main issues that I have is that I'm not willing to do a lot of the stuff that seems to be part and parcel for growth on Twitch or short-term growth on Twitch, like spamming all over social media, spamming my links everywhere. Just a lot of that stuff that kind of leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not saying, obviously, it's a good strategy. Everybody uses it. I'm not saying it's an invalid strategy or a bad strategy. It's just something that, like, I've talked about this before numerous times, but I basically don't want to feel like I'm a fussy parent trying to get their kid to do their chores, you know, like, oh, make sure you're watching all my YouTube vids, make sure you're watching all my streams, make sure this, that, and the other thing. I don't want to do that. And I also have this probably somewhat naive belief that if my content is good enough, and this is not speaking for anybody else, this is just for me. If my content is good enough, people will enjoy it, and I don't need to tell them to enjoy it. I don't need to explain to them why they should enjoy it. I don't need any of that. So yeah, as we get into a hacking minigame, that these saves are actually the most annoying things in the entire universe. I can't figure out like a good way to do it. I actually save here because I'm worried I'm going to die. Little director's commentary. But yeah, that's what it boils down to. I want to be producing content, and a lot of it, a lot of the struggle comes from me just kind of being a bad combination of a little bit lazy and a little bit scared about what I'm trying to do, because I don't know what I'm trying to do, and it makes it a little bit tricky for me. Look at this. There was actually no way to... Wait a minute. There was actually no way to do that. That's crazy. I didn't notice that the first time. But yeah. So that was one of the first major topics. And I sort of rambly segued my way into a bunch of different topics. One of which I think is very interesting, which is the conversation that surrounded recently revenue share on Twitch that Twitch gives to its creators. So right now, if you are an affiliate, you get 50-50 sub revenue. You get 100% of your bits revenue, where the cost, you know, the cut that Twitch takes is more on the consumer side. Where if you buy 100 bits, which is $1 for your streamer, they get the full dollar, but it costs you about $1.40. These are all US values, something like that. And a lot of people are saying, you know, that's not enough sub revenue. We need more sub revenue if we're going to make this a full-time career, which I think is a very interesting way of looking at things. I can't say that I agree particularly. I think that one of the things that people run into with that kind of stuff is we are all contractors on Twitch. None of us are employed by Twitch. We're all contractors using a platform. Every platform is going to take a cut. The problem right now is, as anybody could tell you, is that Twitch has a very large percentage of the market share. It's a very large market share. It's something like 70% of all, you know, streaming content, not like streaming services, but live streaming, live broadcasting content is run through Twitch. And then you have YouTube gaming at a distant second with about 20-25%, and then you have Facebook gaming with most of the rest of it. Give or take. These are all obviously estimates. You can go look them up for yourselves if you're that interested. So the issue is there's a petition that's been going around saying, like, you know, everybody sign this. It's going to be a good thing. It's good for everybody. Twitch is going to have to take notice if enough people sign it. And I think that's a great idea. But I don't think it's going to work, because I don't think that Twitch needs to listen to anything we say, because they have very huge control over the market. I, for one. So another thing that's interesting to note that doesn't often get talked about is partners actually get a 70-30 revenue share on tier 3 subs, which is obviously a lot more expensive, 5 times as expensive as tier 1. But they also get 60-40 on tier 2s. So the majority of subs are tier 1. So for the sake of argument, I think it's completely acceptable to say, you know, like, well, we only get, you know, 50-50 split. But people often leave that out when they're trying to make their point, especially when they trumpet YouTube's 70-30 split. Which is a bit of a myth, because YouTube doesn't really have that many monetization options, and even when they do have the options, they don't give you the same kind of rewards that Twitch gives you. And I think that's sort of the genius behind Twitch, and something that made Twitch partly led to its continued success that we see today, is the fact that when you subscribe, there's really good reasons to subscribe. Ad-free viewing if the streamer wants to give you ad-free viewing, if they want to you know, have roles in the Discord, that's outside of Twitch, but like emotes and stuff, you know, you can do sub-only things. You can do subscriber-only streams, for God's sakes. Like, you can lock all of your base content behind a paywall, which I think is a terrible idea, but people might do that. But yeah, so this whole discussion of like, we need more revenue share, we need more revenue split. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, you know, if that's ever going to happen. So the way that I could see this happening isn't going to be a petition, more than likely. It's going to be if action is taken. And a petition's all well and good, but I tend to sometimes come down a little bit too hard on activism, quote unquote, that I see as like very low effort activism. It takes no wherewithal. It takes absolutely no engagement. It takes pretty much no effort. It takes no time to click on a petition, sign your name, and hope for more money. And that's what people are doing for the most part. If you genuinely think that you deserve more money, there's got to be a better way. And the better way is, if you really think it's a good idea, if you think YouTube is this haven where people get paid more and everything's great, why not go there? You would be killing two birds with one stone, because theoretically, according to your logic, you'd be making more money, which you'd be making more money per sub, sure, but obviously the viewership is not nearly where it needs to be. If you ask any major creator, they took the deal because of the large guarantee that came with streaming on the site, the exclusivity portion of it. They didn't go for YouTube's burgeoning community or anything like that. They didn't go for any of that. Like Dr. Lupo's on record saying, like, I just wanted to make sure my family could live securely for the rest of my life. And who blames that guy? No one. It's what Ninja should have said when he left for Mixer, instead of giving the whole, I want to get back to my roots of streaming spiel. But anyway, Doc has said he makes like a sixth monthly of what he made on Twitch, but he also has like a multi-million-dollar exclusivity deal. So most of the money being made on YouTube right now is still just like on Twitch, at the top, like, 0.0001% of streamers. The viewership on Twitch just isn't there yet. So what you would do, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. What you would do, if you really think YouTube is that great, you should move. Because, and this isn't so that I can come back and say I told you so, because what you'd be doing is you would be saying, okay, I'm not happy with how something is run somewhere. Twitch is not doing it for me. I'm not. So not only would you be getting away from that environment that doesn't do it for you and going to find another environment that ostensibly does do it for you, for, hopefully for your sake, you would also be pulling, at X many viewers away from Twitch. And that is what's actually going to motivate them. All this stuff about like, YouTube's buying streamers, man, YouTube's going to win. That's not how it's going to work. It's going to have to be a mass movement. And that's what they're obviously trying to do. That's the goal behind their whole buying streamers thing. But as you can see, not really working out that well. YouTube gaming's not making any huge moves. And the other naive part about the whole assumption that like YouTube's better revenue split, it's a utopia, blah, 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 blah. That's only because they don't have market share. So they need to be competitive. This is how, like, it's like I'm oversimplifying things, but this is basically how business would work. You need to get a foothold in a market. You can't afford to be non-competitive like Twitch can, who already has the foothold in the market, who, as far as live streaming content goes, invented the market. And everybody railing against Twitch and being like, blah, 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 it's a monopoly. Who do you think made it a monopoly, guys? All of us, myself included. We all did. We were the ones who were like, oh yeah, like Twitch is the best. And then all of a sudden it turns out in some ways it's not the best. And it's like, well, too late. You want to know why they didn't have to be the best? Is because for a long time they were the only ones. So they were the best because there was nobody to compare them to. So if you want to move, that's a sacrifice you would be making, quote unquote, for the greater good, I guess. That's a little grandiose of terminology, but you see my points. Like, unless a bunch of streamers move over and pull a large portion of the viewership away from Twitch, you're not going to have any sort of meaningful change, I don't think. A company will only act based on the numbers. They don't care about you. They don't care about your financial situation. They don't care about what you think you're entitled to or what you need, which is another completely different topic, because what we think we're entitled to is often vastly overvaluing what we actually are entitled to. And I've made a video about this before my stream experienced any growth. So, but all of this stuff, like, it feels very entitled to me. A lot of people, are saying these kind of things like, we need better revenue split. And it's like, why? You're just asking for free money. And why would a business give you free money? You have to come up with a reason, aka be an incredibly successful streamer in your own way, or make a meaningful change for the sake of yourself. And then also it has a tangential benefit of drawing competition towards something else. And competition in streaming services is best for the viewer and it's best for the streamer. Now, I've talked a lot about, and I sound 100% like a Twitch apologist. I'm sure anybody who does not share my viewpoint has already clicked off the video at any point. But if you manage to make it through all the drivel that I just spouted at you, here is my flip side argument to this. Twitch is obviously imperfect. I don't think anybody in their right mind would say that Twitch is like an amazing integral platform. Well, it has been integral to the streaming community for the last 10 plus years. But nobody would say that it's perfect. I'm absolutely not saying, would more money be nice? Absolutely. But you have to remember, you're paying a premium to be on the premium platform. You are paying extra because you have access to all this viewership. And like it or not, that is the most important thing for a streamer, because It's all a game of numbers. The more viewers you have, the more likely it is that some of these viewers are going to, financially support you, which is the end goal for most streamers. And on top of that, everybody knows the whirlwind effect of like some guy starts getting a lot of subs and then he starts setting a milestone for trying to be the most sub streamer on Twitch ever. And then everybody sort of dogpiles onto it because they all want to be part of something. It's the same reason why Tim the Tatman can average X number of viewers, but that one day he was playing Fall Guys and got his first win, he had 350K. Everybody wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. So we all know that effect takes place. So a lot of you are thinking right now, like, well, what the fuck? This all sounds pretty miserable. It seems like I'm damned if I do. Like, I go on Twitch and I take less money, or I try to blaze a trail and I make less money, on the aggregate. And yes, that is the system that we are currently in. And until something drastic happens and a large scale movement happens and shifts the balance of power, that's the way it's going to stay. So my approach to all this, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, this is just how I approach things, and I think it's important to, consider other people's approaches. My approach to this, rather than, whine to Papa Twitch or Mama Twitch to give us more money, it would be accept that this is the system that I'm in, determine whether or not that I am comfortable with that system and can thrive in that system, and then do my best to thrive in that system. There is something tremendously freeing about realizing that Twitch doesn't give a shit about you, because that means that you don't owe them anything either. If you wanted to pick up tomorrow and leave, you could do it. If you want it now, granted, it doesn't mean as much to you as it might, as to them as them leaving you might to you if you get banned or something. But you have that ability, and you have to recognize that you're a very small fish in a rather large pond. There's millions of people who stream, millions of people who live stream and broadcast stuff. I don't know about how actively, but the numbers are crazy. There's tens of thousands of even partners now, hundreds of thousands of affiliates, and you're trying to carve out your own niche. So we all have roughly the same platform. Of course, the supermassive streamers dominate most of it, and it's a case of 1% rah, fuck the man, etc., etc. And you can rail against that as much as you want, but the reality is, if you want to make it, you're not going to get anywhere complaining about it. You have to figure out a way to cope within that system. There are people who have emerged in the streaming community, like a lot of the old heads are the big ones, the guys who have been there, Pokimane, Tim the Tatman, Shroud, Dr. Disrespect, people who've been streaming for years, like since the genesis of Twitch, essentially. Twitch as we know it especially. And those people started doing something as a hobby, and then all of a sudden it turns out to be an incredibly lucrative pastime, and now there's this gold rush effect of everybody being like, oh my god, you can make money doing this. I also sit in front of my computer and play video games, and sometimes I say things and it's pretty fun and I like hanging out with my friends, so let's do it. I could do this. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, that's the beauty of streaming, is the fact that the barrier to entry is so low these days, with consoles being able to stream and whatnot depending on your internet. Like, you basically just need a decent internet connection, a console or a PC, and you're away. You're away to the races. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the great thing. You're going to find a whole bunch of nuggets of treasure. And I think that's wonderful. But it, of course, comes with certain flaws. Nothing is perfect. Nobody's going to get... Everybody shouldn't get the same exposure. If you're talking about, like, oh, man, everybody... The system wouldn't work the way it does today if Twitch started being like, hey, here's all these zero-viewer streamers. Because, A, having been somebody who has rated random people many times in the past, it is a total crapshoot whether you're going to get somebody who's even paying attention, or has a mic, or interacts with chat, or swears a lot, or you know what I mean? Like, there's just so many variables. So Twitch is better off advertising the people who have brought them money and are going to bring the money. The issue with that, of course, is that you feel like you don't have a lot of discoverability on Twitch, which is a fantastically silky smooth segue into the other topic I was talking about in this video, which was discoverability. And more specifically, Hover GG or Share on Hover or whatever. It's an interesting platform, and it's essentially they build themselves. They're like, it's content just for gamers. It's just clips. It's basically just Twitch clips, but all smashed together. It's like gaming TikTok essentially. That's their thing. It's sort of it's a bit of a malnourished platform at the moment, but it's encouraging to see some people branching out and focusing on discoverability and trying to address the issue of discoverability on Twitch, because right now, as we know, it's basically just a rich get richer game. So that's a cool idea. And, I was skeptical of it at first, because I'm always skeptical of something that seems too good to be true. Everybody's raving about it on social media. I tend to get a little bit wary of it. I log in, I make my account, I'm looking at it, I'm figuring out how it works. They have this thing called a gravity system where you earn XP for interacting, watching, and posting clips, interacting with clips, watching clips, and posting clips. And and through that metric, that informs their algorithm of how much to push your content. And it seems like a pretty cool idea on paper. I think it's got potential, but I think that the way it is right now is complete. It's way too shallow. Like, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the depths of the algorithm. That's a trade secret. That's their proprietary information. But if you are just, it seems to me like it's very prone to something like abuse. Like if I sign up a bot to Hover and I spam post my own content and I spam like, click, and comment and whatever on everybody's stuff, does that not just hyperinflate my gravity score and then push me forward? Not to mention they have a leaderboard for gravity users. And all of a sudden we run into the same issue. At the beginning, it's going to be fine because it's a pure meritocracy. If people randomly, organically stumble onto clips and grow them enough so that somebody's gravity gets high enough that they start reaching more people, then you get that snowball effect. I benefited from this when my buddy Stuart rated me a whole bunch when I was first starting out streaming Fall Guys. After we did Twitch Rivals together, he rated me, and I went from like a 5 to 10 viewer streamer to a 20 to 40, and then I started popping up into people's recommended channels and all that noise, right? So you get that kind of snowball effect. But the problem is that only works for the first little while. It starts off as a meritocracy, but then you have this metric that says, if you get popular, I am going to push your content to more people. And isn't that the exact same issue that's going on with Twitch, that people have with Twitch? It's a completely logical way to run an algorithm as far as I'm concerned, but it can absolutely feel like it's hard to get out there. And this is sort of like where we branch into the very, very subjective part of discoverability, as we see Mrs. Langford here on the Struggle boost. She's about to get gassed. But discoverability, it's definitely a tricky topic, because on one hand, there are very, very many more organic ways to discover or to increase your own discoverability. And a lot of these ways are referred to as networking, where you make friends in the scene and you collaborate with other content creators and et cetera, et cetera. So the way that I, sort of organically grew my stream was I just gave the story about Stu and how much he helped me. And absolutely, that was very lucky. I made a friend who was, had a bigger stream than I did, and he was gracious enough to share his viewership with me. And that's something I will never, ever forget, because he really helped me launch me on that path. But the way I got to be friends with Stu was I was the first player in North America in Fall Guys that we know of to get to 1,000 wins. And that is a humble brag for sure, but it's also the only reason that I got onto a Twitch Rivals team. I didn't have a huge social media presence. I didn't really know what I was doing social media wise. So when Inventor Blades put out a call for a team, and people knew who he was because the Fall Guys Twitter had sort of shouted him out, when he put out a call for a team, I basically tweeted at him and had my community blow it up as much as possible. And I had my small group of, 5-10 people who spam retweeted and liked it. And then he saw me, and then I had a tryout. But I would not have been in that position had I not put in 500 hours in 2 months to Fall Guys. 400 or 500 hours in 2 months, and gotten to this milestone of 1,000 wins. I was the first person, potentially, that we know of in North America to 1,000 wins. And that, being exceptional in that way, and again, this is not me stroking my own ego. This is something where it's like I was the first, so it's exceptional. Sounds like I'm trying to convince myself here. But anyway, being exceptional is what got me the opportunity. If you're looking for discovery and you don't know what your X factor is, this is how this ties into our earlier topic with myself. If you don't know what your X factor is, if your X factor is just your dazzling personality, and sometimes that's enough. A lot of just chatting streamers are very entertaining to watch for folks, and that's cool for them. But if your X factor is non-tangible, it becomes very difficult for people to for discoverability to affect you. You don't have really anything to show for. You might have spicy clips, absolutely, and that's a great way of doing it. And you can post them in different spots, and as long as you're not obnoxious about it, as far as I'm concerned, everything's fair game. But it's spooky. Like, what are you going to do if your X factor is being funny? You have to figure out how to capitalize on that, So you would have clips. You could do different kinds of content. You could make shorts. You could do, like, not the clothing, but you know what I mean? You can make short videos. You could spice up clips. You could learn how to edit and do some comedic editing. There's so many things you can do, and you can reach out to people and be like, hey, do you need an editor? Do you want to collaborate with me? Stuff like that. Asking an app to do that for you feels a little bit weird, and it feels like people are kind of missing the point as I get riddled with bullets on screen. It feels like people are kind of missing the point. You know what I mean? The idea that, like, oh, we need a place to spread our clips around, because the problem is not that the clips are, you know, not really anything special or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But the problem isn't that the clip doesn't hold people's attention. The problem is that nobody's watching it. You know what I mean? It's a very subtle difference between those two things. And it's hard to tell which one of those is right. If I put a clip out and it doesn't perform well on social media, is that because the clip was crap, or was it because it didn't reach a large enough audience? And I would guarantee that a lot of people do not look at their metric numbers and say, like, oh, this type of tweet reaches more people. You know, like, my go live tweets don't really reach anybody. That's why I stopped doing them. I was doing them because I found a way to do them that I thought was funny. I made them into, like, silly newspaper headline style things, something that's been done a million times before. And I thought it was funny, put my own twist on it. And they got some decent engagement, but compared to tweets about clips of me doing crazy stuff on Fall Guys or something, it never really amounted to much. Like, the impressions were down, the interaction was down, all that stuff was down. And it's important. It's super, super important to look at those kind of things. Don't automatically assume your content is perfect. Don't automatically assume that if the right, you know, if people just heard it, if more people heard or saw my content, I would be famous. That's such a weird thing to assume. Just like I can't tell you that your content is inherently garbage, you can't tell me it's inherently good. As a free, like, if I'm the free market, right? As another creator, cannot tell you your content is terrible. The free market is going to decide whose content is quote unquote good or bad, right? So if the free market decides that, then the content creator cannot decide what they deserve. They can have an estimate. They can be proud of their work, and they should be proud of their work. You should be doing your work you're proud of course. And that's why I've been struggling, is because my work has been very lackluster for me for the last few months since I've been swapped off Fall Guys. But if no other creator can tell you your content is bad, or your content doesn't deserve the success that it gets, is probably a more concise way of putting it. You cannot say my content deserves more than it's getting. What you can do is try to get your content to reach more people through various organic or inorganic mediums. And so that's why I think Hover is not going to long-term solve any problems. I think it's a bit of a flash in the pan, because as soon as you get more users and a big enough user base, it has a fair amount of users already. It's a decently sized app, but it's obviously nowhere near Twitch, nowhere near TikTok, YouTube, nowhere near any of the big ones. As soon as it gets too many viewers, you're going to run into the same issue, especially with a relatively simplified algorithm of, you know, if you interact enough, if you post enough, then you'll get pushed. It's like, that kind of just encourages, everything's going to go towards the laziest strategy. Everything's going to go towards the laziest strategy. And if your algorithm is susceptible to something like, oh, if I just spam post, if I sign up a bot and just spam post my own stuff and spam comment and chat on everybody else's content, and it boosts my gravity, it's going to turn into a completely meaningless app. So I hope for their sake, again, I'm not on the dev team, so I don't know. I hope for their sake they've got something to really scale this, because I don't see right now the way it is how it's going to scale. But I think it's really cool that software devs are taking a stab at solving a problem that a major corporation doesn't seem to care about or address. Friendly reminder, major corporations don't care about you. They care about you until they get market share, and then they stop caring about you because it's back to caring about the money. So as long as you can accept that, and as long as you can look at that and say, okay, I completely accept that, and I know now that I am free of certain obligations. I don't have to worry about, you know, being super loyal and hyper loyal to Twitch and all that stuff. I don't have to worry about that. I can just do me. I exist in a system. How can I thrive in it? That's the more important thing. Put all that criticism you're spewing out externally. Twitch doesn't do this. YouTube does this. Hover's going to do this for me. You got to really make sure that your content is as perfect as you want it to be and the best you can possibly be. Be your own harshest critic. If you're your own harshest critic, A, nobody's words are going to hurt you. And B, you will have a step up on the competition because everybody looks for external validation. But that's the end of my spiel for this episode. I hope you guys have a great day. Everybody take it easy, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.